Okay, in question 6, we're going to replicate what we just did in question 5. In question 5, we had a Keynesian model of an economy. Here we have a neoclassical version of that model. Same model. In the neoclassical model, the Short-Necker supply curve slopes up. And you can see that right here. The slope of Short-Necker supply is positive. Aggregate demand still has got a negative slope. And potential GDP is about the same as it was in the previous problem. It's just a little bigger. So this is long-run aggregate supply. This is short-run aggregate supply. This is aggregate demand. This axis is the price level. And this axis is real GDP. And the equilibrium is right here. And you can see that because the equilibrium is right here, we're in a recessionary gap, and GDP is less than potential, which means the unemployment rate is high. And then the price level is no longer the same. Well, it's determined by short aggregate supply, which is upward sloping, and aggregate demand, and it would be right here. Okay? Now, we can calculate it. We can calculate the equilibrium by taking it to Desmos, right? .com. And I'm just changing the values of the intercepts and slopes in Desmos. That's cool, right? As soon as I change the demand curve and the supply curve, right? The aggregate demand, short and aggregate supply, I get new graphs. And I can see that the real GDP here at this equilibrium, short-run equilibrium, is 11.475, and price level is 14.63. And those are the numbers I give you right here. 11.475 and 14.631. Right? 14.631 and 11.475. Okay, the output gap is the difference between what real GDP is, in this case, 11.475, and what potential GDP is, what it should be if the economy were at full employment, if all resources are being fully utilized. So the output gap is that difference, right? So what I'll do is I'll go over to Excel, and I'll just have Excel calculate it for me. And the output gap is negative 1.412. That means we're in a recession. It's negative. Oops, sorry. Wrong box. The output gap is negative, so we're in a recessionary gap with high unemployment. The fiscal budget is balanced, so that means taxes equal government spending, so the fiscal budget balance is 0. And like I said, we're in a recessionary gap because the output gap is negative. Real GDP is less than what it should be, so that means unemployment is high. And when unemployment is high, that means it's greater than the natural rate of unemployment. Hit enter, and we should get all those right. Cool. Okay, this is the graph you're going to have to screenshot for your homework. So you'll screenshot this. In Windows, you can use snipping tool to screenshot it, and you screenshot it to Word. Then you might have to type some stuff under it per the homework, and then once you print it, then you print it off and you can label it. So we'll go ahead and label it, right? So we have a tax cut of 190 billion. We have an increase in government expenditure of 245 billion, and it results in the following aggregate demand curve, right? So I'll go ahead and plug this into Desmos. And we can see right here that the price level is now 16.297 and GDP is 12.887, which is equal to potential. So you go up here, potential is 12.887, right? GDP and potential GDP are equal right there. And the price level is 16.297. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph this. label the graph, I should say. So again, this is the price level. So once you've copied and pasted this into Word and printed it off, this is what you're going to do, right? This is aggregate demand from scenario 1. This is the short run aggregate supply curve. This is the long run aggregate supply curve, which corresponds to what GDP should be in the short run if the economy were at full employment. This is the GDP level in scenario 1. And then we have the price level in scenario 1. And we have the price level in scenario 2. So we have inflation, prices went up. And we have GDP recovering to what it should be. So we have inflation and economic growth. Okay? The new price level is 16.297. GDP is now 12.887. Okay, and then we got to label the aggregate demand curve from scenario 2. Okay, so that's aggregate demand from scenario 2. The price level was 14.631, right? The price level was 14.631. Right? And GDP was 11.475. Right? What was it? I forgot already. 11.475. So GDP went from 11.475 to 12.887. The price level went from 14.631 up to 16.297. Okay, that's what you'd have to, how you'd have to label that graph in your memo, your homework memo that you had to upload. Okay, so the output gap now is 0, but the fiscal budget balance is no longer 0 because there was a tax cut, and an increase in government spending. And both those increased the deficit. So the tax cut's 190 billion, and increasing government spending is 245. So the fiscal budget balance is 435, negative 435, because T minus G, T's negative, G, T minus G. So you got a negative, that went down, taxes went down by 190, so that's a negative 190 minus 245. So it's equal to a negative 435. We're in the hole. The government's in the hole. 435. And because we're now in scenario 2 with GDP equal to potential, that means the unemployment rate is equal to the natural rate of unemployment. Nice. Green check marks make you feel good. Now GDP increased, right? GDP went from a low level to a high level. Same thing with the price level. The price level is low here and is now higher. So real GDP increases and the price level increases. But by what percentages, right? So let's go ahead and grab the values of the price level and GDP level in scenario 1. Okay, that's GDP. This is the price level. So this is GDP, real GDP, and this is the price level. And this is scenario 2. In scenario 2, we have GDP higher and the price level higher. Okay, so this is what it is, and this is what it was. Okay, so economic growth is parentheses what it is, GDP, minus what it was, GDP, divided by what GDP was. And we got to turn it to a percent, so we multiply by 100. So what it is minus what it was, that difference divided by what it was. And we get 12.301. Now if I pull this down, I get the inflation rate. Okay, so we'll review. We're taking what it is. We're taking what GDP is, we're subtracting off what GDP was, we're taking that difference and we're dividing by what GDP was, and we get that. We do the same thing for inflation. What the price level was, what the price level is minus what the price level was, we take that difference and we divide by what it was. So we get a 12.31% increase in GDP, and we get 11.39% increase in the price level. And we hit enter and we get the correct answer. We get correct answers everywhere. So that's what fiscal policy is supposed to do. And you learned that in macro principles.